Coming up this week on Beyond the Vibe, we're joined by the Damn Truth.
Leo was traveling through Israel, and we both happened to be at the same hippie festival, just on some river somewhere. And I heard this song played just on acoustic guitar. It was Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, Almost Cut My Hair. Beautiful. And I love that song, you know.
Yeah, but then we get a call and it's ZZ Top, so we're like, okay, we'll do one more tour, and then it's the last tour.
The cops, they pulled us off on the side of the road. It was like 3 a.m. and we're like driving well over the speed limit. It was the middle of the night. We see the blue and red in the back. This guy's at the wheel. I'm in the passenger seat. He's asleep in the back with our cameraman.
Who was filming?
Who woke up to film. So the cops pull us over, they want to know our story. So we start to give them our story. We're driving across the country. We're going to meet Bob Rupp. We're going to make a record. Hey, we say to them, maybe you might remember us. Our van caught on fire not too far from here a few years back, On another tour. And the cops just started to the bells started to ring in their minds. Actually, they turned to us and they were like, well, why don't we listen to one of your songs? And if we like your song, we'll let you go,
Hello and welcome to Beyond the Vibe, the show that cuts deep into the world of music.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Basic. My name is Aaron Day. I'm lead guitarist of UK band These Wicked Rivers, and I'm here, as said, with music videographer and photographer. It's Mr. Ryan Vason.
It is.
Your hair looks ever so lovely.
I know. Well, the people will go, his hair's unusually straight this week. Well, I've
put your hand in a plug socket, didn't you?
Yeah, it was
No, that'd do the opposite. You'd end up with freaky hair, which is probably what it was.
That was what I had to counter. So that is the origin of that.
I found a hat. I watched. Me and Jade have been watching Ink Master, and Rob Zombie came on. What are you like with Rob Zombie? You ever been a Rob Zombie fan? I can't imagine you being a Rob Zombie fan.
I mean, do I look like a Rob Zombie fan?
I'm very surprised.
No discredit, but he's just not my cup of tea.
He has an energy and a vibe that I like about him. Like, I listened to some of them 90s albums. Like, Jade quite likes them. So yeah, he was wearing this hat, right, that I've got in my head. Special hat. Mm-hmm. And Jade went, well, you should get out like that. So I got an hat like that.
Oh, here we are. Look at this.
And what it does is amazing, because all my hair just sits in the back of it, but I haven't got to tie it up, which we obviously, because we know if I tie it up, we get closer to the keyboard. It's a keyboard player look. We don't want that, do we, Mr. Lacey? So I got this new hat where the hair sits in the back of the head, so I'm enjoying that. That's the main highlight of my week so far.
Beautiful. A new hat.
Band have returned to the practice room as well. Obviously with COVID regulations lifting and stuff. Yeah. A bit nervous. A little bit nervous, but once we'd got in there and once we got the levels right and everything, we started with a new song, and I think that was probably a mistake, because you when you're writing, you don't get that vibe straight away. It takes a few times going through it. Whereas once we went into Shine On, it was like, oh, this is good. Missed this. Do you know what I mean? Like, I haven't had my amp turned up to that level in 6-7 months, so that was in itself just an awesome feeling. So yeah, it's all happening. Who are we speaking to this week, Mr. Vace? Just remind me.
We are speaking to the people from the Damn Truth.
Very cool band.
Really cool band, really cool people. We were fortunate enough to hear the album in advance. Really cool vibes.
Yeah, man. I think obviously there's a real vintage rock and roll thing coming back. It's a little bit different than the new wave of classic rock. It's in the same bracket, but there's a new wave of classic rock. You've also got bands like Those Damn Crows. You got Wagons. You got Gorilla Riot, and all these bands. The Treatment. They all have this different sort of character about them, which is great. But I think that there's a particular wave of bands that have got this vintage rock and roll thing. If you look at Dirty Honey, Crownlands, and obviously the Damn Truth. And I think that what we liked about these guys in particular is we felt like they were real, didn't we?
Yeah, it's it's genuine. It's not kind of manufactured in any kind of way. And like when they talked about the origins of the band, which we'll get into shortly, it's like a throwback, but it's not forced.
Yeah, it feels very organic, and I think that's what the whole movement's meant to represent. I mean, when you're hearing the interview around the origin story, but they mention a song called Almost Cut My Hair by Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, and that album is one of my favourite albums of all time, and it just embodies that entire sort of hippie movement, the late 60s, early 70s, that folk community. And we use the word community a lot when we chatted to the guys. And one of the things that you tied in with that is obviously the fact that Greta Van Fleet's new album's come out over the past few weeks. Now we Well, we've not spoke about Greta Van Fleet for a while, have we? We've repressed the Greta Van
deliberately
Fleet
not
chat because
said
there was a point when we struggled with it. How are you finding the new Greta Van Fleet album?
Well, the thing is, for me, I like a few songs off it, but I feel that large portions of the album are quite similar in terms of, like, you know, they're all these kind of big, long, slightly kind of slow-paced songs. So I find, you know, maybe it's too long. Maybe they've had too many of these songs on the album. But I felt that it could have had some more kind of rockier kind of songs that they had on, you know, the first album and the EP. So there's something in that vein just to kind of separate things out a bit. But yeah, it was kind of what I expected it to be, having heard the singles. And you know, I can't really knock them too much because, you know, they're doing something that they clearly enjoy, and I feel that there's a lot of pressure on them as well at the same time. So I don't want to go in too harsh on them still. I mean, they're still younger than me, which, you know, is crazy really to think that they're going on like American TV, and, you know, they're kids still, really.
And they're finding their feet, aren't they? I mean, some of the songs are. When you're kind of trying to categorise it, I think of it as the epics. You know, there's too many epics, and when you've got multiple epics on an album, they don't become that epic anymore. You know, and I really like the album. I vibe off it, and I really respect the fact that they're aiming high. But I do think by aiming so high, they've fallen short a little bit, and that might just be because they're still finding their own little journey. Do you know what I mean? I agree with you. I think there's a lot of pressure on them to deliver the goods, and they're probably, you know, struggling to find. But that's where you need guidance. I mean, the Damn Truth spoke about working with Bob Rock and the producer who worked with Jack White. You know, you need people there and be open and perceptive to that, and say, look, rather than this, let's do that. Yeah, maybe we've got too many of these type of songs. Let's save a couple, pick the ones that we think are best, and then bring in a few more rocky ones. And then that means that the epic ones sound even more epic. They've got that focus and they've got that place in the overall journey and balance of an album. And even though I really like the album, I do agree with you that I think it falls short at points because there's too many of that same trick being played. You know, save it, use it as a trick, use it as a thing to pull out your back pocket. You know, that last song on the album's awesome. That like 6-7 minute long. You know.
Yes, and my one criticism, my big criticism.
I know what you're going to say.
They had an epic name for this song.
What was the name?
They called it Black Flag Exposition.
Fantastic.
I mean, what a name! And then they've changed it to, it was like Weight of Dreams. It's like, well, that's not
it's lost its thing. Whereas I feel that maybe the Damn Truth would have called it the original one. Do you know what I mean?
Maybe so.
They've got the vibe.
But yeah, speaking of the Damn Truth, you can hear that now.
Hello, so we're here with the Damn Truth. Thanks for coming on, guys.
Thanks so much for having us.
That's cool. So one thing that we like to do on the show is we like to go right back to the beginning of a band and their personal journey.
Roots.
So how did you guys get into music in the first place?
For me, I was 4 years old. I saw Jimi Hendrix in Woodstock on my parents' VCR, and that did it. I was like, I got to play guitar. I was 4. I picked up an acoustic and never stopped.
Cool. So it's guitar for you first rather than vocals?
It happened together. I mean, guitar. Yeah. I mean, I've always been singing, so the singing was already a given. The guitar was the. Yeah.
What about you guys?
I mean, yeah, we can go back to the history of histories, but I think an interesting story is actually how we met. So Leah was traveling through Israel, and we both happened to be at the same hippie festival, just on some river somewhere. And I heard this song played just on acoustic guitar. It was Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, Almost Cut My Hair. Beautiful. And I love that song, you know. Yeah, so I kind of like made my way towards the sound, and it was the kind of festival where everybody was naked, you know.
It was very hot. And there was a river, and we just kept jumping in and out of the river, and nobody bothered with clothes anymore.
Yeah, so Leela was sitting there naked playing that song, And I had my guitar on my back and just sat down. We didn't say anything, just kind of started jamming. And we haven't stopped, I think, since. I mean, but we played that night for like 9 hours straight, and we kind of discovered that we had the same kind of influences and we love the same music. And we decided we probably should start a band.
Cool. So it all started with you two guys, and then where did it go from there?
Yeah. So we made our way to Montreal. It's my hometown. He was my own personal import into the country. And we wanted to form a band. We wanted to play in a band. We didn't want it to be just a duo. And we wanted to play some real rock and roll. And that's Dave ringing the doorbell.
Right on time.
Beautiful.
So yes, we wanted to start a band. And we were basically, we had this mutual friend who was a drummer as well, and he was putting together like a backup band for this pop singer who got signed and had a lot of money and a budget, and she was looking for a backup band, so we all got hired to back her up. Okay. And it was nothing really happened with that sort of deteriorated quite quickly, but we were already the four of us in the same room together and having a blast. So she left the project and we just continued.
And did you all have that sound from the start in your heads, or did it develop over time, that very vintage thing? Because as you said, the thing that brought you together was more that Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young vibe, which is obviously very folky, you know, the late 60s, early 70s. But how did that evolve into that slightly heavier edge?
I think, so like I said before, Leo and I, we had the same kind of influences where it's like, you know, that golden era of rock from 67 to the mid 70s there. But Dave, our drummer, he comes from like a heavier background, and he definitely brought something to the table that's fresh and unique. And it's like sometimes, you know, I would come into the rehearsal space with a riff or whatever that in my mind sounded like, you know, a ballad or whatever, something soft, and it would just bash the drums on it, and you know, magic would happen. You know, it's like something that I would never really think about myself, but he kind of, you know, brought a different energy to it. So I think a lot of like maybe the more heavier sounding stuff that comes from Dave.
There's Dave.
Sorry, guys. He walks into the frame.
Yeah, we could try to get us all. We were trying to do this before.
Yeah.
We're just bad mouthing you at the minute. Not for turn up late, for bringing the heavier sound to the band.
Guys, I walked in just at the nick of time. He was about to start bashing me, obviously.
Exactly.
Yeah, we were just gonna start, exactly.
Oh, you missed all the drummer.
Cool.
Yeah, so going back to like the beginning of you guys, you started with the debut album Deer in the Headlights, followed by Devilish Folk. But of course, your breakthrough came with Love is Blindness, which featured on the St. Laurent commercial. What was that time like for you guys, and like how did that conversation come about?
It was, it was one of those like super out there meetings where, you know, we play a gig and someone comes up to you at the end of the show and says, "Oh, I really, really love your voice, and I have this project for you." And you never know if to trust the person or not. Like, who are you? What are you? But he actually, followed through the next day and said, "I've got this contract and I think your voice would be perfect. Will you guys try and, try to put together a song?" So we recorded our version of Love is Blindness. And they chose it, like Yves Saint Laurent chose the song, put it up.
It was a demo, like we just made a demo for them.
Yeah.
And the process was really long because I think they auditioned or tried like, tens of different artists. And even with Leah, they sent emails back and forth. Why don't you go back in the studio and try this and try that and try that? And the process took a bunch of months, but eventually what they used in the commercial is the demo that we made that first thing.
Cool.
Yeah.
They must have loved that organicness and the rawness just in the demo then.
Yeah, I guess so.
Sometimes, I find the same. When you're doing the demos, you do tend to capture something that's different when you go in the studio a little bit. So it must have just suited their needs. But it's cool because I do think that it was good for you guys to have that platform. And then I think once bands are given that platform, particularly for that more vintage rock and roll, you start to see there's a real appetite for it coming back. There's that real wave of it. And I think people, particularly because the world's such a difficult and challenging place to be in, I think people want to go back to them more like 60s and 70s times, and looking after each other and having that more supportive, and community is the word that I kind of go back to. It sounds very hippie and stuff, but that's the vibe that I get when I listen to you guys, definitely.
Oh no, I'm glad that comes across because that's definitely what we're all about, man. That's you got it. It's all about community and about peace and love and about taking care of one another. Absolutely.
And we need that in these times, 100%.
I think so.
I'm glad you guys are pushing that. So in terms of looking forward, so the new album, Now or Nowhere, released Friday, May 7th. Of course, was produced by Bob Rock. Really cool. How did this come about? I mean, we heard about your mad journey in the van across the country, but for those that haven't heard, can you tell us about this?
Sure.
The journey or before the journey?
The whole thing, man. The whole thing. How did it come about with Bob Rock and then the journey?
Day one. So we were lucky enough to, somebody who brought me into the band is our manager, Ralph. He owns an art gallery, and that's where he met Tom and Leela, and it's where he met me, and it smushed us all together. And he's an old timer from the 80s, a beatnik. So he used to manage Bob Rock's band, the Payolas, amongst many other artists that you probably know. And he told us, since I was in the band, I've heard this, like, once you have the songs, we'll send them to Bob Rock. And we'd been on the road about 4 years straight, picking up the phone every time it rings and off in the van or off on the plane we go, and not really writing at home. Everything was happening on the road. And with this record, after seeing the world and where it is, all the people hanging out with them, getting the macro view of humans today, we really felt like people wanted to hear that uplifting song, that raises the beer at the 2 o'clock in the morning at the bar, the chanting songs, the fun, the love, the positivity. And when we got back, finally we said, we're not answering the phone anymore. We're making this record. So we started working really hard at home to make all these demos and stuff.
Knowing that Bob Rock will have to hear this.
Yeah, exactly. Knowing that Bob Rock will have to hear it. But then we get a call and it's ZZ Top. So we're like, okay, we'll do one more tour and then it's the last tour. Because you don't say no to fucking Billy Gibbons, right? No. So then we knew, after the ZZ Top tour, we really focused. We buckled down, and then we knew we had some songs that Tom was like, Ralph, send the songs. Just fucking send them. We don't care anymore. Just send. It's going to be good. And finally, he fucking sent the songs, and within a day, Bob Rock calls, and he's like, come on to the warehouse. Let's record a record. And he was really... kind of like jiving with us, because one of the first questions he asked us was, do you guys feel comfortable recording live off the floor? And we all look at each other like, yes, that's the only way.
Yeah.
That was a good story.
It's a good story.
Let's just hang up and go home.
I like the fact that Bob Rock called like about a day later. Like he tells like he didn't need to think on it. Do you know what I mean? He's just jibing. I bet for you guys that was cool because it's like, he's there with you and he wants to get you down there and he wants to, like you say, jibing straight away, just vibing with what you guys want to do, and particularly doing it live is just exactly sounds like what you guys are about.
It was really scary, because it's like that you're gonna have to play in front of Bob Rock, So one of the things that we've done right away is that we just locked ourselves in a rehearsal space, because there was like a few months before when we booked the date until we actually had the date. So we had like 3 or 4 months where it was a 9 to 5 every day in the rehearsal space, 6 days a week, just getting these songs done, So when we get there, we have to play in front of Bob Rock and we're going to impress them. And it's going to be fun, I think we did a pretty good job at it. I mean, we banged out like 6 songs in 4 days. And Bob was just so into it. I remember even like from the first phone call that he called us, and it was like, you guys give me like a kind of Led Zeppelin 1 vibe, and we're like, yes, he gets it,
Yes.
You never know, you never know if he's gonna, pull a Bublé on you,
Well, he said he never gets to work. He said that he never gets to work with like rock and roll, the thing that really, scratches his itch, and he's like, to work with you guys.
That's the thing about him. He's the classic rock guy, so we connected on that like right away, and
cool.
We had fun. I mean, he's just a good old Canadian boy, He's like super polite and fun to be around with, and a genius, honestly. Like, let's not forget that, because everything he touches and everything that he says and all his references, he's a musical genius, the guy.
We're leaving out the jelly in the middle, though. We didn't even talk about getting there.
Oh yeah.
Getting
Yeah.
there
For those that didn't know,
was the whole epic. Maybe Dave, you want to recount it in the style of Tolkien?
Sure. It was,
without that
epic,
style, that's our tipple.
Voyage, yes.
I don't know if you ever looked at a map, but Canada is like as big as Russia. You know what I mean? I think it's bigger.
It's bigger, yeah.
Yeah.
Territory.
So we drove across the country, with the van loaded up with all the gear to get to the studio. And I mean, normally we would cross the country on a tour, and we would cross the country over 30 days, and we would stop every night and play shows. But this time around, we just loaded up the van and we decided to drive straight. 4,562 kilometers.
Fucking hell.
So we had a kind of like schedule made out. It was like each driver would do their 6 hours, and then they would clock out and go sleep, and we would just keep the van going 24/7 until we got there, just in order to maximize the amount of time we would have when we got to Vancouver, and just to get comfortable, clear our heads, maybe have some whiskey, have a walk, and then go into studio, So the trip, the trip across Canada it's not pleasant, It's like a really long and grueling drive, because you would expect that it's beautiful, groomed highways, and it's really brutal. It's a hard drive, and it's a long drive, and it's fast, and it's just long,
There's a lot of nothing.
There's a lot of moose.
There's a lot of moose. There's a lot of wild animal on the roads, and a lot of big trucks, and it's like quite dangerous, and it's kind of scary, because I mean, once you're into like hour 10 of your drive, you're already like starting to kind of like dream.
It's a weird psychosis, isn't it? Like I always find everyone goes quite quiet, as they get towards them last couple of hours, so I imagine that continuously is quite challenging.
Well, it's a 50-hour drive.
Yeah, I mean that's.
But within the first 8 hours, we got stopped by the cops and almost ran into a moose. So we were like,
"Oh, that was like hour 30."
What? That was
you're not even past Mordor at that point.
I never screamed like that in my life.
It's like a wet balloon.
So what happened? So what, for those that don't know, what happened with the cops then?
Oh.
The cops, they pulled us off on the side of the road. It was like 3 a.m. and we're like driving well over the speed limit. We're trying to make good time, because no matter how early you leave, you're always late. Like when you drive a van full of like guitars and stuff. So it's the middle of the night. We see the blue and red in the back. This guy's at the wheel. I'm in the passenger seat. He's asleep in the back with our cameraman,
who was filming.
Who woke up to film, So the cops pull us over, they want to know our story. So we start to give them our story. We're driving across the country. We're going to meet Bob Rupp. We're going to make a record. Hey, we say to them, maybe you might remember us. Our van caught on fire not too far from here a few years back, on another tour. And the cops just started to the bells started to ring in their minds. Like they actually remembered us, because this story of our van going up in flames on this tour kind of like
it made national news.
News. Yeah, because of where it happened. Like it happened in probably the shittiest part of fucking Canada.
In the winter.
So the cops the cops were cool, man.
It's a wonderful place. They ended up being amazing to us.
It's just northern Ontario. It's a very brutal kind of landscape.
Yeah. It's a very shitty town. It's all the people are lovely.
The people are wonderful.
People are lovely.
There we go.
So the cops were, they were playing along. Like I don't think they wanted to get us or anything. It's like, we turned to them. Actually, they turned to us and they were like, well, why don't we listen to one of your songs? And if we like your song, we'll let you go, Mm-hmm. So PY calls up a song on YouTube. They take the phone, they
go back to the cruiser to listen to it.
They're walking away from the car listening to our song, and I don't know, they go back there and check whatever they want to check out. And 5 minutes later, they come back up to the car. They get, they give us back our documents. They said we could go. But I mean, we should have gotten a ticket.
Yeah, we were going double. So it was in Ontario, they really cracked down on that.
But they were really cool, man. I mean, they just let us go. They fooled around a little bit. They cracked a few jokes and they said, off you go, boys. And
drive a little slower.
Yeah.
Which we did.
There's actually footage of it, because the camera guy that was with us, he actually caught it on tape. So you can see it in one of those Week in the Damn Life episode. I don't remember which one.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely recommend them to anyone listening. We've checked them out, and they're the killer guys. It's really cool to follow your journey.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.
So obviously the band and the album, as we've discussed, has this kind of real retro 60s 70s vibe whilst still kind of feeling contemporary at the same time. With the new album, did you approach anything differently this time, with you obviously working with Bob? Is there any changes compared to the first two?
Well, first of all, I think when I listen back to the way I used to sing in the first two albums, there was a lot of anger and a lot of fear in my voice. I can hear it, and it's something that I don't know. It had to do with what was going on in my life at the time. It had to do with being pregnant and, being scared of bringing a child into the world and what can I offer this kid, and just being very, very depressed all in all. And I think that really came through in the songwriting. It came through in the way my voice sounded, and it's very dark, and I think we really wanted to make a positive album, after touring for so many years. And for us, meeting our fans after the show, that's really the cherry on top of the cake. We love hanging out and meeting our people. And we just got that vibe, what we were talking about before, about community and about how important it is to connect and how important it is to love each other. And so we wanted to make an uplifting record. We didn't want to make another dark, morose, finger pointing record where, this is bad society's shit. Stop doing that. Stop polluting. No, let's just, let's still deal with these issues, but let's do it with a smile on our face and and try to put some positivity into the world. So that was definitely on the vision side. That was what we were going for.
Ooh.
As for working with Bob and working with some incredible mix engineers as well. We've worked with Vance Powell on 4 songs. The new single is Vance Powell. I absolutely love his sound. I love everything he's done with Jack White over the years, and being able to tap into his expertise was incredible. He took the songs from being really good to being absolutely incredible. Just the work in the studio with him was out of this world. So I think that brought us to another place as well. Working with so many talented ears really, really helps. No,
that's really cool. From
awesome.
From a Sonic's perspective, working with Bob, did you feel like it was? Because I with me and the boys over in the UK, I always have quite a sound in my head, and I always struggle to put that across when we're recording, and I imagine you guys are the same. You've got something vivid that you want to put across within that energy. And did you feel like working with Bob he was able to kind of to be the wizard that would get you closer to that?
I think that sound that you're talking about in your head, I think he got it right away, and he took it to places that we couldn't even imagine are possible, to me anyway. So it's I remember even on the second day when we moved to the bigger studio, and over the course of the night, they set up the drums, for example, and just walking into the control room, and I think Dave was playing, and I'm listening to the drums, and I'm like, oh my God, what is that? And he it just blew my mind, and he's like, oh, those are just the room mics. And then he puts in the whole kit. And I was like, Lord, it's oh my God. I didn't even, because sometimes you ask yourself, do you really need 60 microphones on a drum kit? Is that really, but then you hear it, and it's those people, they don't do it for no reason. Really sounds better. So obviously he has his method. And we also, I think one thing that I would like to point out is that we came into this session really with open minds and open hearts. We wanted to learn from Bob, and we wanted to, we really wanted to experiment as much as possible with his vision as well. We didn't want to be closed-minded about anything and be no, I want it like that. Just open and trying stuff. And Bob is not the kind of guy that will tell you, you must do this or you have to do this. It's when you're in the studio, the speakers, they don't lie. So it's you try something and you go back into the control room, and if it sounds good, it sounds good to everybody, and if it sounds bad, it sounds bad, and you move on to the next thing, So there was a lot of that happening.
He was really adamant about that too, though, where he's I'm just gonna throw an idea out there. You take it or leave it. We'll do it. We'll listen, and if it's not jiving, it's not jiving. Let's move on. And just the stuff he would suggest sometimes were whoa, are you serious? That fast for a song? Well, he took a ballad song and cracked it full of cocaine. It was crazy. And we're what? We can't play like that. And then we play and we go, listen, we're bowing down to him at that point. Like, genius, man.
It's like, how would that be possible? I didn't even think I could sing that fast and it would be coherent, and boom, it just worked. It worked so much better. It's like we listened back to the demos that we had originally done, and it was like, this is crap. Like, how did we ever think that this is the right speed for the song?
He was really able to gently push us over the cliff.
Yeah.
Because that's really the most that's really the most amazing thing about Bob, because I mean, his vast knowledge of music is amazing. Obviously nobody can take that away from him. He knows how to set up like all the mics and get all the sounds that you can just dream about. That's a given. But what a lot of people don't talk about is humanity and his psychology. Like he knows how to get the best out of you, in the most gentle and loving way, which is just amazing. It's like he got stuff out of Lilo's voice that we've been playing music for 10 years. I never heard her sing like that before. It's like,
that's cool.
He just knows how to come up to you, put his hand on your shoulder and be like, whisper something in your ear, and like he just plays so much better after. It's like, it's insane. It's like a wizard.
Yeah, he's like magic.
The wizard man.
He's magic.
So
he kind of kept on saying, he kept on, the first day that we worked with him, we were in kind of like a pre-production studio. And then he just kept on saying that day, and also during our phone calls, he's like, when we get in the big studio, you'll see there will be magic. He just kept on saying this thing,
reinforcing it into you,
kind of like dropping this kind of like Pixie does that, like, just wait, because when you guys get in that room, there's no doubt in my mind that there will be magic. And there was some kind of magic that happened once we stepped into that room. Maybe there is magic, maybe there's fucking demons, or not demons, but good demons or whatever, but something magical. And he was right,
Fucking Gandalf, man. Bob Rock Gandalf.
It's Gandalf with a crazy gear and guitar collection, basically.
Which I can imagine was part of the enjoyment as well. Just delving into that. It sounds like happy marriage though, because I think because you guys are perceptive to him doing that sort of thing, like you went in there fully open and wanted to just soak it all up. I think some bands would go in there and maybe not have that mentality in it, and whereas because you had that more vintage sound as well, I imagine Bob was just dying to try some of them old school recording techniques that he probably doesn't get to do a lot of the time, so
exactly.
It sounds like a really cool marriage at that point, and I'm sure the album, what it does, it reflects that, I mean, with that,
it really works.
no, that's cool, man. With that in mind, I mean, you've started obviously over here in the UK. You've started making waves, with Airplay on Planet Rock and Classic Rock magazine. Have you guys ever been over here before? Have you ever done any tours? Have you ever played any gigs?
We had one night in London, which was absolutely incredible. We were on a European tour, and our agent at the time said, "Don't go to England. You're going to lose all your money. There's no point. Next time around, don't cross the border." And we were like, "We're here. We're in Belgium. All we got to do is hop on the train, and we'll be in London. We got to go. There's no way we're not going to London." So we booked our own show. And, knowing that we were going to lose our pants, we just had to do it. And we ended up having like an incredible, almost sold out show at the O2, the O2 in Islington, like the smaller room there. Yeah. It ended up being a hub, like fans from all over the UK, people that have been following us since the Love is Blindness days. They came down from Scotland, they came down from Sweden, they came down from like everywhere, from Canada. We had ended up being like a hub. People came, and lots of new London fans as well. And it was an incredible night. So we just got the taste, and we're like, we cannot wait to come back. We think it's going to be an incredible tour.
Amazing.
Just awesome.
Cool.
You guys are sorry, I'm going to blow, but I suddenly had that vision, because I remember, you're playing Europe for the first time, and so some audiences are warm, some audiences are warmer. Spain was really hot, and some places in Germany were a little cooler. But when we got to London, like everybody was on us. Like, this is the stage, and there was no mosh pit. There was just faces in front of my face, and I love that. I love it. There's no inhibition. People are there for rock and roll. They're like soaking it up to get the sweat dripping from us on them. That's what I remember about that show. It was just incredible. I love that. That's
wild.
That's the kind of people I want at my show. People that have no inhibitions and want to be as close as they can. I love that.
That's cool. It's cool. I wish I was there. It sounds like a fucking killer night.
It was awesome, man.
The bar closed and some people went out and grabbed us like 8 bottles and came back, and it was like the party continues. And all I remember is I woke up in some Hogwarts looking grounds on a chair with glass all around me.
One more could you want? The ultimate night. The standard Saturday night for us, isn't it, right? Waking up in Hogwarts grounds surrounded by glass. Yeah, might just be me.
It was beautiful.
Moving back to the album, one of my personal favourites was Everything Fades. It feels just a bit different with that acoustic intro at the start there. But is there a track that you guys is like a personal favourite for you? Is there something that you point out to people as one to look out for?
I think we each have our favorites. Yeah.
I have a favorite on every given day, but I mean, that song might feel like an outlier in the context of the record because it's the acoustic one or whatever. But I mean, from my perspective, it fits right in with the record,
100%.
What's your favorite?
Today, my favorite is This Is Who We Are Now, because I've been listening to it quite a bit the last couple of days. We're doing rehearsals and I've been digging into it. And I mean, it was the song that was like it wasn't the song, but it was one of the songs that kicked off the kind of pre-production process for the record. And it was the one that got like the engine kind of like going for me and excited to make the record, And now that it's the one which is out in the world and people are kind of taking it in, and I'm kind of like, I'm vibing that song a lot these days.
Cool.
That's cool.
For me, I guess it's like Dave, it changes daily, but I'm very proud of the song Tomorrow. Like I wanted to write something that has that big guitar riff and is is very positive. And I don't know, that song just came to me one day when I was in the shower somewhere in the US. I can't remember where, like in some motel. And I was like, I sang it in my head like I was like Frank Sinatra saying, I don't know what to do. And it's like, I showed it to Leela and it turned out to be the song. But there's just something about it. Like, I don't know where that song came from. Like, I don't remember thinking about it. It just came to me. And just like when I listened back to it, I was like, wow, I really like it. I really like what Bob did with it. And the whole thing together, I'm just very proud of that song.
Cool, man.
Mm-hmm. For me, on a very personal note, it's Lonely because it's like the song that we've kind of had around the longest. We've been singing it live as an a cappella song for years. And it's kind of the one moment on stage where it's just me and the fans and like the crowd, and they sing along and they join in and they clap and, and they know the words. And it's just, and it was always this very personal, intimate moment. And when Bob heard it, I mean, he really loved it. But right from the start, like when we were still here in Montreal and he was at home, he was telling Tom and I, try, fool around with it. See if Tom can add a little guitar here and there. And we were trying and it never sounded right. We couldn't we had like our hands in the air, like how the hell are we going to do this? We're just going to record it. It'll be a cappella. It'll be a moment. That's it. And when we got to Vancouver, Bob basically said, yeah, do that little thing. And it was just like within a second, it was like, do that little thing on the guitar, do that little thing on the bass, drums come in here and boom, away it went. And what happened to it, from a little a cappella song to this like monster 2.5 minute kick-ass song. I just love it. I love it. I love the mood. I love the scream that I give there that I didn't know was in me to scream. I don't know. There's all these little bits that are like really, really cool about it. For me,
that was the magic.
For me, it's Lonely. Yeah.
For me, I'd have to say today it's going to be also This Is Who We Are Now, but for different reasons than previously stated by the other dudes in the band. That's in the previous records. Sometimes the band would listen to they'd listen to the Suits, like put out this song, and then you kind of are like, did we make the right choice? Was this the right song to put out? We should listen to our guts. And on this record, from the get-go, This Is Who We Are Now. After 4 years of not releasing anything, after the situation we find ourselves in, it just felt in our guts. This is the song. And when we were doing kind of our listening tests and our field work, it wasn't necessarily the main song that people would say to release first, but we still went with it. And I'm so fucking happy that we did because it's such a fucking kick in the balls. It's high octane and it's just like, it's the song. It's right. It's the right song. So for me, it's that. I'm proud of us for sticking to our guns and doing what we want.
Sometimes like, because we're also, for this record, we signed to a new record company. And sometimes when you work with a team, right now we're like with Spectra and it's Sony here in Canada and whatever. And it's like, when they advise you to do something, like you have the tendency of listening because, it's a major label, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like, we really did with this one what we felt was right, even though might not have been the advice that the record label people gave us. We did what we wanted to do, and I think it worked out for us. I'm happy. I'm proud of that.
No, I think, and that hones back to that. I mean, it's something over here in the UK that I struggle with personally. Is that battle with, going with the tide or going with what people suggest? Because I think if you look back through the history of the music we love, it's always them moments when people do that leap of faith where everything changes. Because like you say, you get that little bit of magic, and I think people realise, fuck, we want something different. Like there's an appetite for it there because there's been this constant stream of something that's quite similar, and I think when you're true to yourselves, that's when you really tap into the magic. I mean, you mentioned it then about the suits and stuff, giving you different advice. Obviously, you guys have been going at it for, as you mentioned yourself, 9 or 10 years at this point, and it feels like you're really kind of, pushing it and working with Bob and how killer the album is. Was there any point in that story that's led you to now where you second guessed yourselves, or you thought that you weren't going to be able to continue moving forward, or did you always believe in the band and the story?
I've always believed. I'm a believer.
I'm a believer as well since day one. And within when I first joined the band is when the van exploded, and I still believed then. I didn't have anything left. I was basically just a man with 2 guitars and an amp. Everything else was burnt in the fire, and I still believed.
And it's also like, it depends on like your definition of what do you mean by believe. I mean, it's like, when COVID hit, for example, we couldn't do anything. We couldn't get together as a band. We couldn't play. We couldn't jam. And it's kind of like, it brings things into perspective a little bit, because like, what's really important in life? Selling out a show or like getting a gold record. Yeah, of course it'll be fun. But what's really important about this particular group of people is playing music together. And when COVID hit and we couldn't do it, we just had to figure out any possible way to just still jam and play music together, because life is better that way when you have music in it. So it's like, even though we could only do it like at a distance from each other, we all recorded parts at home and put together like these little covers. It just made life in quarantine and lockdown so much better, just to be able to still be in a band and play music and whatever. So yeah, obviously like it'll be great to conquer the world, and we're going for it. Don't get me wrong. But it's like just the fact, if you're just happy with like playing music with your best friends, writing songs, being creative and spending your time like that, then I think you're going to be a happy guy,
No, that's cool, man. I think a lot of people, and maybe including myself in some ways, can take inspiration from that. I think it's you dream about doing it when you're a kid, and I think you can take that for granted at times. And I think COVID makes you look at what's actually important and what you're actually doing it for. And if you can enjoy that every time you go out, then you're always going to be happy, aren't you?
Exactly.
No.
I'd like to add something to that last question as well about believing in ourselves. There was a moment after coming back from Vancouver. Well, I mean, the moment is still happening. It's called COVID, and we weren't able to go back to the studio. And then we had to make a choice. Do we release these songs that we did with Bob and not do the other X amount that we want to do here in Montreal? And we decided, because we believed in ourselves, we decided to self-produce the last 3 using what we learned and just all our entire lives worth of knowledge. And if we hadn't believed in ourselves, the song that you like the most today, Everything Fades, wouldn't be on the record.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting.
It's interesting.
Yeah, that's cool.
Obviously, with COVID going on, over here they're looking at bringing back gigs and stuff like that. Not sure what it's like over that way, but are you guys planning to tour again and like celebrate the album?
As soon as we possibly can. There's nothing that would make us happier than to get back on the road. I mean, we are, stage lovers. We love it. We love being on the road. We're like, the best way that this family works is when we're in a van together. It really does. That's where all the magic happens. That's where we write our songs. That's where we just love it. That's the life that works best for us. And so the fastest we can get on the road, we'll be happier for sure. We're just, we're hopeful. It's right now, it's for us right now in Montreal, in Canada, it still seems like we've got a ways to go. Things are still, we've been in quarantine. We've been not in quarantine. We've been in curfew, like 8 p.m. in your homes. It's been now since December. 8 p.m. It's like, that's very soul crushing for musicians. It's like life only starts at 8 p.m. And right now we're so it's been the long haul, but we're positive, and we're trying to, book and rebook. But as soon as we possibly can, we'll be out on the road again.
Awesome. Do you reckon you'll come over to the UK?
Oh, yes.
Guaranteed.
Fuck yes.
Be among the first places we hit will for sure be the UK.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Killer guys.
Absolutely.
Can't wait to have you over here.
We can't wait to meet you guys.
Yeah.
Oh, man,
we'll come out and do a proper thing face to face. And
absolutely.
I like guitar pedals, and you guys have a lot of gear, so we'll have a nose around all that shit as well. Like, we'll have a nerd off.
To talk about. I don't think we'll have any problems.
No, I think we'll be fine. Now, as we've said, you guys seem, have obviously got that really cool inspiration with the 60s and 70s thing. I mean, when I was kind of getting into kind of performing gigs and stuff, I'd have certain people, that I'd listen to and I'd take little techniques or inspiration from. Is there any people in particular that you guys were inspired by personally, that when you go out on stage you kind of, it's always difficult, this question, because I don't want to put it on people that it's like that you're nicking techniques or anything. I think it's more just about that inspiration. I like you mentioned earlier, Jimmy was a big guy for me, because I just loved the vibe and the intensity, and it all just being about the music, so whenever I go out I try and tap into that mindset a little bit. Is there anybody for you guys in particular as individual performers?
Well, for me, I mean, a defining moment when I was 9 or 10 and I heard Grace Slick's White Rabbit, like for me, that was a moment where like every hair on my body was on end, and I'd never heard anything so beautiful. And so I think it's been like a lifelong mission for me to be able to like convey that kind of emotion, because she's just so incredible. And I guess, for me, it's Grace, and Janice, everything that she stood for, not only her voice, which was incredible, but her persona, her larger than life, fluidity. She was just so incredible. And she was so like, stick it to the man and, say it as it is. And was so ahead of her time, and such a trailblazer for women, and for loud, powerful, outspoken women, not the little ones that should be quiet and down and singing pop songs, for the louder few. So she's always been a big inspiration to me as well.
Cool. What about the rest of you guys?
Honestly, for me, I think the biggest like moments of inspiration for performance and live stuff have actually happened, on tours with the bands that we travel with, when you can see an artist raise their arm and capture the audience and feel that moment, that connection, when we're on stage and doing it kind of like in a bit of a daze, and it's exciting and it's fun. But we've had the opportunity to tour with ZZ Top and Rival Sons and The Cult and so many cool bands where you get to see and feel the kind of cause and effect, you know what I mean? And just see how you can be in control of the emotions of an audience. And it's like, it's largely happening in the front of the stage, but to really experience it there live in person, it's completely different than seeing it on the screen on a video from 40 years ago or something like that. It's like just being there in the room. And those were the moments for me that kind of like marked, how I kind of like feel when I jump on stage, or, you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely, man. Great answer.
You can answer if you want.
Sure. For me on stage, there's not very much thought going on. It's just like a primitive, primal thing. I go blind and then like all of a sudden I'm off stage, the show's over. But I remember when I was younger, the moment that switch flicked for me and I was like, this is what I was meant to do, is I was perusing my uncle's under the bed VHS tapes, and I found this Kiss tape, and I remember it still to this day. the interviewers, they walk up to Paul Stanley's house, you know, and it's like Ace Frehley's Rolls Royce is parked like half in the grass. And then Paul Stanley opens the door in this robe, and there's just ladies all over the place, and he's eating Cheerios with Coca-Cola as milk. And he's like, they're asking him, how can you be a rock star? And he's like, well, a balanced breakfast is important, you know, as he eats his Coca-Cola Cheerios. And he says this line that I still remember to this day. He's like, see, right now, if I step over 1 foot, you're going to see it. But the stage is a different realm. And when you enter that realm, 1 foot translates to 10 feet. So if you want anybody to see you do anything on stage, you have to scream it, you have to yell it, and you have to jump. Because if not, you're invisible.
I love that. It's badass.
So finally, before we finish, I always like to kind of finish on a bit of a hypothetical question that kind of ties in with what you've kind of spoke about. If you could tour with one band from the past and one band from the present, who would they be?
Mm-hmm.
Jesus Christ.
One band from the past. Goodness gracious.
I'm sweating.
We normally get a lot of swearing.
Everybody swears.
We've been really working on our swearing because we have there's a thing in Canada where like swearing is kind of part of English. And
I think that's everywhere.
okay. Anyway, I'm a fisherman, so been cleaning up my act. Jesus, what
if we could tour with Zepp, man, if we could tour with Zeppelin, that would be kind of mythical.
Yeah,
that would be mythical. Yeah.
And Foo Fighters, I would say, for the current.
For current, oh yeah, to get on the road with Foos.
Yeah, man. I like that choice. I don't think many people would have guessed you to have said Foos, but I think Foos get a bad rap, you know. Like over
Why?
here.
Who gives them a bad rap?
No, we're over here in the UK. I think they have a different. I feel like I've got to defend what I've said.
Here we go now.
I'm in the court. I'm in the Foo Fighters courtroom now. Let me get my braces on. I think over here they've got a different vibe where they slip into the more mainstream rock a little bit. Whereas I think when you look at like the overall vibe of the band, like it's a real group of true musicians. Like obviously, like I'm one of the things that really inspires me, if I'm not feeling inspired, is the Sound City documentary with Dave Grohl, because it just shows how much of a true musician he is. But over here, they kind of slip into the more mainstream rock side of things, you know, rather than the more classic rock side.
What's so bad about being a mainstream rock band? I mean, it's like, you know, everybody's talking about how rock is dying out and young people don't connect with it, whatever. And here's a band like Foo Fighters. Dave Grohl writes his own songs, you know, they like produce their own albums. It's not like somebody's like there with a whip, like telling them what to do. Like, you know? It's like they're a real band and they're so successful and so good. For me, they're an inspiration. I mean, like Dave Grohl is a legend, man.
Yeah,
for sure.
Absolutely.
Definitely, yeah. I appreciate you defending them. I think they deserve that, man, 100%.
I think a lot of those people, I have a lot of friends that have that exact same opinion. They hate Foo Fighters for no reason other than they're stuck in the shadow of the grunge and the Kurt Cobain, you know, where it was so anti-pop. And now that they're in this kind of pop active rock radio, they can't get past it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're probably right there, man. There's a little bit of that involved there, you know. Whereas I agree with you guys. Like when you watch documentaries of the Foos and you see what goes into the albums, you know, the real musicians, man. You know, and Dave Grohl lives and breathes it all. Do you know what I mean? Nobody can question that about him. Cool.
100%.
I also I like to add honorable mention to that. I would, if Oasis ever got back together.
Yeah, that was
open for that tour.
That was fine.
I met Liam Gallagher once in a festival here, and that was before he put out like his solo records, just before. So it was like kind of like he played like in 4:00 in the afternoon, you know. So I was like,
wow.
We played at 2 in the same stage. We played a couple hours earlier, and he played at 4.
Yeah, whatever. And he played with my kid, whatever. It was just a stand-up guy, whatever. I have a Liam Gallagher story, but we'll keep it for another time. But you know. I just want to meet him again because it was, so cool. That guy.
Such a cool dude.
Legend, man. I like that. I think that vibe would work. Like maybe like you guys opening Oasis / Foos and then Zeppelin closing the night.
It's a mad lineup.
We can deal with that. We can. That's a vibe. Thanks ever so much for chatting to us, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
For those that haven't for those that haven't checked out the Damn Truth, make sure you check out the new single, This Is Who We Are Now. The album, Now or Nowhere, is out May 7th. Be sure to follow them all their socials. And like we said earlier, 100% recommend the stuff you guys have done on YouTube, because I think it gives such a good character of the band, what you guys are trying to connect people with. Like you said earlier, that community, 100% recommend that. And when you come over, we'll have to have a nerd out around pedals, wake up in some Hogwarts grounds.
Yes.
Do that
Absolutely.
whole thing.
We love it. We love it, man.
Thanks
Can't
ever so
wait.
much for your time, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take
Much
care.
love,
Good
guys.
rest of your day. Cheers, guys. Bye. So that was the Damn Truth. I really vibed off that. I thought they were really cool guys, and I feel like as the interview went on, like the energy kept rolling as well. We started to chat, and we always like it when we ask questions, but then they evolve into different things, and you want to ask different questions based off the answer they've given. And I felt like that flowed really well, Mr. Vasey. Do you?
Yes. Really like cool people,
Good stories.
Yeah, great stories. I mean, people know me. I'm, very much on that kind of story thing, because it's humanizing. Like they talked about the van catching fire, and losing all your gear, and they keep coming back, don't they? They've had this thing where they've been on quite a journey there, and I like that resilience, and I feel that they're now getting the rewards for that, and they
big time. And like I say, we've listened to the album, and the album's got the same vibe. It feels like they've reached a really important point in the band, and it feels like everything's coming together for them, and they seem like they deserve that, man. They're fucking cool guys.
It's I mean, I'd not heard of them until recently, because they're now breaking through, particularly over here, this.
I'd be very honest. I'd not heard of them before, just because they'd not made them steps over here before.
But I'd definitely go and check them out.
Can't wait for them to tour.
I'm looking forward to it now.
Get my best flares on. My best one. I've got a selection.
Yeah, you can't be wearing that hat though.
I don't know, because it looks like I might have dreads underneath it. Nobody knows. I might be bald.
Might be.
I might just have a load of grapes in the back of it. Nobody knows. But if you come along, we might be there. You might find out what's in the hat. Yeah. I'll probably wear one of the twat hats, won't I?
It's got to be.
It's that kind of night, and it's got to be flares and a fedora, ultimate twat vibes. They're a great band. Enjoyed the chat, man.
Yeah, really cool. So
check out the album when it comes out, and give them all a follow.
Yes, I was just about to say that.
Snap your hands off. Snap down your hands.
But yes, that is it for this week. If you'd like to follow us on Facebook and Instagram and all that, you'll find that on a Wednesday, apart from last week, there is a teaser that comes out where you can find out what guest we have.
Indeed. And then on the Saturday, we obviously release our weekly episodes at 10 a.m.
Yes.
With different guests on the musical scene. We try and evolve it. We try and bring in people that are going to tell stories from the new wave of classic rock scene, a few older rockers. We try and go for everyone's different palettes. But if there's anyone you'd like us to interview, or if you'd like to be on the show, drop us a message and we'll see what we can do.
Yeah, it's all about that community vibes. So yes, see you next week.